Dr. David Clements, originally a theoretical physicist, specializing in string theory, advanced degrees in physics and maths from our esteemed universities, but then his life changed dramatically it was your remote viewing that was going so well, wasn't it? You started to be connected by galactic beings, and David constantly has these galactic beings at his shoulder who help him with generative technology to help humanity. But as well as that, and he's now a living energy systems expert, and he runs a beautiful Patreon group. And there are two tiers, aren't there, David? There's a free tier and a paid tier. And so there are different levels in there, but you can join as a free member. And the reason I wanted to have this conversation with David, apart from the fact any excuse and you'd love me to talk about
Likewise.
So it was last Sunday you held a live stream, because they come up round about every 2 weeks or so, don't they?
Yes, that's right.
And it was about a 2-hour session with a really powerful meditation. And I'm going to be asking David about this, because by the end you were kind of pretty blown away. We could see.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
You were all deeply moved by that. And there were over 2,000 people on that call, but I thought it was so powerful we had to share what was coming through you to more people. So, because if you want to join David's Patreon, you can do it completely for free. And I just wanted to start with one of the things you said, David, because you said at the end that what you'd experienced was like a surge of energy, like a micronova from the center of the Earth.
Yes, yeah, it was, there was so many layers to unpack there, and probably before we get to that stage, if you don't mind, to give a bit of contrast. So people who may not have heard of any of the work that the teams do on the Patreon side, because I know you've got a huge influx of new people to your work as well, is that a little while ago, and before the beginning of this year, they spoke of this year being such a massive ramp up in energetics and what was going to happen. They spoke about these waves that were coming through that happened exactly as they said, because it was actually you who asked the question, do they have a date for when the waves are going to start? And it just suddenly came through. And on that date, because I don't normally give dates, because things are usually in flux because of people's choices and decisions, those sort of things. But it was very strong. And on that day, everybody else, when I asked them, just felt, yes, it was this powerful wave that just rolled on through. And anyway, so as that continued, they brought through this idea that they were putting an energetic membrane, a little bit like you could think of as the layer of the womb, to basically create a new interior around the Earth, a sort of growing process, if you like. And they mentioned that by doing this, there were going to be sequential updates and just sort of shifts up, and updates to the interior of this membrane. And they would be sort of monitoring, watching how people cope with, say, level 1, how everyone was integrating and stabilizing. And then when time was ready, they'd be bringing through the next one and so on. And I believe what happened on Sunday was one of those upshifts that they spoke about. And it was quite extraordinary, because when the meditations that come through, I don't just decide, oh yeah, it'll be great to do this week or this week. I consult with my teams, and they make recommendations of what they'd like to do on that particular one. And if they have nothing... Yes, exactly, yes. So it's a combination. It's my higher self, obviously all the way through to my source self, or the infinite source intelligence, as I call it, that everybody has access to. And then the galactic teams, who obviously operate at a very high level of connectivity with the source intelligence, who assist in different realms in different ways. So there's a multitude of different beings. Some of them are different races. Some of them are non-corporeal or don't have physical form, and they're in field form. So it's a pretty vast sort of group effort, if you like, of beings. And so they come through, and they have the sort of, what shall we say, the 100,000-foot view of everything. So they know exactly what's best to introduce when and how. And on this particular one, they said, we really would like, this is a global meditation, so, and to have this so as many people can participate as possible. And it was to do with this interior uplifting, this massive new paradigm shift of the interior. And they said, what's happening sequentially with, because they said humanity and the earth itself are walking hand in hand with this ascension process. And so we're up-leveling and symbiotically up-leveling together and with each other and for each other as well. So it's a whole sort of family, it's a family gig, let's call it that way, if you want to say that. And so, yeah, it was extraordinary. There's a lot of things in there because they usually give me a little bit of an outline before, going into it. So I have the right information to tell people before we go into the meditation. But they always leave a lot of surprises and little gems in there, which, are very spontaneous and are for the meditation moment only and not to be, mentally sort of cognitized beforehand. So it was incredible. It was first of all, and one of the big themes of what this was about, because as everybody knows, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, a lot of kinetic stuff taking place, a lot of upheaval, a lot of big things taking place, and it's upsetting a lot of people, understandably. And so they were saying that what was actually taking place is there is a release of the energy of suffering that was going on. And that is such a big thing for the human race. And I know you know that very well. And so it was essentially that they were saying that all these effects taking place because over millennia and millennia, because of this human experiment that has taken place. What we have to understand as human beings, we are emitters of energy, and it's the quality, sort of the effervescence, if you like, of that energy, the coding of intent within our emissions that sculpt and shape our experience and our reality. A little bit like, and I've said this before, like in a cinema, cinema has pure white light passing through, but then it goes through the filter of the film. Now, the film could be a horror film, or it can be a really cool, entertaining, fun, uplifting film. It really depends on how you sort of alter, change, and filter your emissions as they come out. Those filters are our beliefs, could be all sorts of other things, unresolved traumas, emotions we've got stuck, all of those add to the filtration and the coloration, if you like, of the emissions we give off. And that's the net energy we broadcast. And so everything reflects that to us in exactly one-to-one to that broadcast. And so one of the things which the teams were saying is that because of the lifetime after lifetime of suffering, and that in itself is a big concept, because there's many different forms of suffering that we create upon ourselves all of the time, and lack. And, lack is simply, is a form of self-induced suffering. Because, people use the word abundance and things all the time, but what is abundance? Well, the way the teams described it, and I feel this very much for myself as well, is that abundance is a real open access to the source well inside you. And, and the less filters and filtrations you have that recolor that emission, you'll have this most beautiful, serene, most abundant, enriched, thriving life. And so that's where, and myself included, in many years past, I had a lot of lack going on. Life was difficult. It was a big struggle. Day to day, I had big dreams of what I wanted to do, but had no means to do them, all those kind of things. And it was very frustrating. And I didn't fully understand at that time that, as the team said, this is part of the suffering you create for yourself because you believe in one form or another that you have to, or you must, or yada, yada, yada. It could be a number of different reasons. But as they began to work with me, and I began to work through peeling off the layers of the different belief systems, the old traumas, and clearing the yucky filters, let's call it, away, suddenly everything, the sculpting of my experience started to change, because then instead of emitting, the request of lack and suffering and can't haves, can't do's, all those things that, sit in a lot of different energy fields of people. And it comes from past lives. There's many, many layers of these past lives that people have. Suddenly everything started to change around. Effortlessly things began to manifest. The true nature of abundance began to create itself. And that's really a message of encouragement for people as well, to say you all have that source intelligence, that pure spark of an abundant, thriving life inside you. That's not just a nice pick you up, feel good expression. It really is there, but it's the filters that get in the way that kind of muddy the water, so to speak, because they've used the analogy many times of, a glass of water full of mud, and as you pour pure crystalline water in, the mud's going to ooze out, and it's going to look like it's really messy for a while as this cleans out. And then suddenly, very slowly, more of the pristine water is going to take the place of the mud, and now suddenly the glass is a different state. It's a different energy state. And so hand in hand, that's very much what's happening right now. There is a huge influx of light outside from assistance. There's a huge influx of light coming from outside, from within us, pushing outside. And you mentioned the ignition of the core of the earth. There's a huge ignition that is sequentially bumping up from the center of the earth. So we are emitting brighter. The center of the earth is emitting brighter. So is the sun. And so is the galactic core. There's multitudes of these things that are really stepping up together in a very particular balanced way. And so this is what's happening. And so the effect of, coming back to them, I just wanted to introduce that because I think it was really necessary for people to get a good grounding and why this is going on. That because of the earth experience and how humanity has lived by projecting all of this lack and suffering and all this other stuff, those imprinted energy or should we say those energies that have been qualified in that way as we emit them, they will go into the earth crust, they will go into the environment, they will go into surrounding things like, matter around you, could be your house, your car, anything like that. It all builds up, and particularly in the earth itself. So over millennia and millennia, pockets of this densified sort of, let's call it, disharmoniously qualified energies that have been emitted. I know it sounds a bit of a mouthful, but it's like, it's kind of quite a descriptive. So as that builds up, it basically started to down the energetic bandwidth that the Earth was in. So instead of being at what people call the fifth density or fifth dimension, there's a whole slew of words to describe it, but basically a higher vibrational bandwidth of experience, suddenly it was getting anchored down to a very densified experience with all of the build-up. A little bit like a storage, if you will, like a capacitor storing electrical charge. It just got worse and worse and worse. But since this ascension process was kicked off, suddenly all that was starting to break down, lift up, be thrown off. And again, with the analogy of the cup of mud, suddenly water was coming in, and slowly the mud was oozing out. All sorts of scuffles, conflicts were manifesting on the earth as this mud oozed itself out. And then it's accelerating now, so the mud is really being oozed out at quite a significant rate now. And so that's what's happening. So this really is, in a positive way, an indicator of the shifting out of the old in a very fast and rapid way. And so the teams have been very clear, try not to focus on external events as if, oh my God, it's all falling to pieces. What's that? It's not. It really isn't. This is the very necessary outpouring of millennia upon millennia of old dross, mud, misqualified energies, all built up. It's all been broken down and cleared out to make way for the move into higher bandwidth of experience, okay? So it's like anything. If a wall's in the way, the wall's got to come out of the way for you to move forward. And in the same sense, this has to come out of the way in order for us to move forward. And it is. And it's doing so at a very fast rate. And so, again, sorry, I'm just, again, a little bit more background there. So the ignition of the core of the earth was quite a spectacular one because we began the meditation with first offering a sort of gift to people to lift off a significant amount of built-up suffering, energetic, within people themselves that they had been storing, and exactly at the level and in a way that their particular higher selves would wish. And that's a very important thing, because throughout all this energy work, your higher self knows you inside and out. Every cell, every atom of your body, it knows exactly where you are, what your life path is, and what the best, most optimum thing at any given time would be for you. So these are always run by the higher self. And so each individual experience is very different from the other sometimes very much so, sometimes just slightly. But so that's what took place, and we've had a lot of feedback from people just feeling this huge cloud that just got lifted off them. And it's stuff that they don't necessarily need to work through. It's stuff that just got lifted off. It's like, you just don't need that anymore. Why keep it? It's like having a house full of clutter that's just built up over an entire lifetime of stuff you never use, you don't need it. It's just causing clutter in space, and it's causing issues. So just get rid of it. And so that's what happened in the first stage. And then the second stage was, so I'll get to your question of the core in a second, just sort of going through how the meditation unfolded, was that there was a significant amount of removal from the earth itself of this accumulated dross, and specific energetics that were put in place of a certain time periods to harvest that as well. That's a very important thing to understand, because certain groups, thrive and work on certain energy types, and this is part of humanity's waking up to realize, be aware of the energies you give off, because so long as you give off the pure unfiltered ones, where you're really giving off, thrivingness, joy, abundance, kindness, compassion, all that good stuff. That's not of use to certain groups at all. Let's just sort of, I'm sure everybody knows what I mean by that. And that it's not a battery source for them. They can't do anything with that. In fact, it dissolves everything they're doing away. So anyway, so that got removed. And then in the last part, with what you mentioned about the core ignition, now, I had this experience some time ago with these very deep inner earth beings that seemed to be acting as symbiotic, they were kind of guardians. Guardians kind of feels like the wrong word. They were working symbiotically with the Earth's core to help the process along, and do a whole bunch of other things as well at the same time. That in itself is a discussion. But they were there during that meditation as people were descending down to the core and asked to go into the very center of the earth. And then there was this very particular energetic gift that was given to allow people to have a much stronger, much clearer grounding connection with the earth. And what that does, among many other things, is that it allows people to stabilize in the ascension process, because the earth is a very, very advanced and evolved being. And by really connecting, grounding in that very strong way to Gaia, I've had so many people just say how stable they feel after this, like energetically, the agitation disappears, all that kind of thing. And I believe a very strong component of that is when you have that very, very strong, clear symbiosis with the earth, a very strong grounding connection, suddenly the stability of your ride up into the higher vibrational bandwidths or realms, whatever you want to call them, becomes so much easier, much more stable. You almost just ride the wave effortlessly. And so that was given, and then an ignition took place. So, which is coming to your question, a long way around to get to it. But so yeah, it was awesome, because what they had everybody do was ride the surface wave, or the wave packet that came out of the center as it expanded, and feel the interior of the membrane, which I spoke of at the beginning. And what it means is that the interior of the earth is becoming more acclimated to the core living intelligence in the center of the earth. Because take a human form, for example, as an analogy. At the very core of your heart is that magnificent source, that infinity point, your sacred heart, that source connection. And now our job as part of this ascension process is to allow that to really emanate, open up, and allow that to flood our entire being. being and go through this transformational process as it does so. And the Earth is doing the same. And so this ignition from the core of the Earth as this wave came out was one such wave of the Earth. So it was a real uplifting, a real push forward, if you like, or a real jump forward is a better word, of the physical vessel of the Earth, the atmosphere itself, and just the entire symbiotic biome, if you like, of the Earth experience. So it was really, really powerful. And for me, I generally feel these waves of energies quite strongly, but afterwards, when the meditation finished, and I wondered if the teams had any more words or anything to add to the meditation afterwards, well, the energy was so overwhelming. I mean, I was holding back my tears, and and they were tears of joy as it wasn't like, oh my goodness, there was the energy that was being transmitted, and it had just been given from this transformational process. Was so strong. It took me a number of minutes, and you were on that meditation, and you saw what happened. It took me a while to stabilize, but it was just so joyful because there were these bursts of laughter of how what the teams were seeing after it had been done, the sheer transformational impact it was having. And this was such a group effort. And I say to people afterwards, this is, don't think this is me doing it. We're all doing this together, and it's this whole group facilitation and activation movement forward. And it was so beautiful. And the upliftment and the expansion that people have felt, we've had so many comments from different people and feedbacks talking about just what a massive shift it had been for them, and how they're starting to see things in a very different light. And that's the key. You see, this is all about, and we talked about this before we hopped on in recording, is that there's the most important thing anybody can do is to connect within. Keep connecting the bridge, opening up, getting to know who you really are as a source higher self being, that part of which is dipped into a physical human body, and really get to know the energetic magnificence of who you are. Because I've done this in my early years, and there's a lot of people who, and I always discourage when they look up to, oh wow, you're this. No, you have the same. If you're looking at me and putting me on a pedestal, you're not honoring or looking inside to what is there. You have it, and what you are trying to revere in me is already in you. So go inside, look inside, that is part of the difficulty of the human experience as I see it, because we have been trained since birth of a lifetime, look outside, everything's outside, all external. No. I would always encourage people go inside. Once you fully open and activate here, everything reflects very quickly outside. The outside is a one-to-one reflection of the emission you give off from within inside. And you have complete power to change, alter, add to however you emit like that. And it's such a simple but very powerful message. It is always inside. Always, always, always. Never been any different.
And I've talked about this a lot in my videos, how, if you go inside, it is so simple and so focused.
Yes.
If you look outside, there are a zillion problems that you couldn't begin to sort out. It can take 1,000 years to sort those out.
Yes.
You go inside and just have that focus of, I choose my state of being, and everything will cascade from that externally.
Yes.
That's the way to do it. So we could see you were very overwhelmed at the.
Yeah. And actually, if you wouldn't mind, I can feel that my higher self and team's sort of asking to add something here, which is that one of the difficulties I found in my earlier years, and this is just some help for people out there who are listening, to just share my experience, that it might be helpful for them in the same way, is that I found a lot of difficulty going inside, because to go in is to often encounter the layers of the mud that you have to go through in order to get, to the very core. And my teams were often saying, don't be discouraged when you go in and you don't either feel anything or what you feel is not so nice, because that is a very important stage of the unlifting of the stuff the layers that are going to come off to reveal the deeper, more of you. And I think that I found from my experience that was often a case of that made me sort of turn away from going inside, and going back to outward focus too much. And I do see that a lot within people's comments sometimes and the way people talk. And I think it's a very important message to bring across, that it is okay. You're going to just go through the layers, you're going to encounter them, and that's necessary. It's important for you to become aware of them so that they can release, and clear from you. And the more you do that, you're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the core, and you're going to find what it is that you're looking for. So I think that's a very, very important message of encouragement for sure.
Yeah, so do you feel, David, because I remember when the first surge started that you were talking about earlier in this video, because I remember distinctly it was December the 4th, because there was a very powerful full moon that day, which you weren't aware of. I thought, So, but you talked about a series of waves in 2026, evolutionary waves.
Yes.
So I'd love to ask you more about those, and because astrologically, I mean, if we're looking at, from tomorrow onwards, the equinox, the rest of March and April, I mean, April is just off the map in terms of a surge of incredibly dynamic, powerful, sovereign, vigorous inner authority energy coming through. So do you feel that there is another surge of energy coming up imminently, kind of late March, April? And is it, if you do feel that, is it of the same quality as what you have just experienced with that meditation last Sunday, or is this something different?
Well, it's interesting because, my higher self and the teams, and to make clear to people, I have a very strong connection that I've cultivated with my higher self. And so the teams talk via my higher self, so I can, I get information quite quickly. And it's interesting, as you were saying that, they were smiling and they were saying there's quite a few waves coming. And yes, it is very similar to what you just described there. And they're saying in terms of the qualities are specific steps to move people towards this inner opening, this inner balance, this inner living. And it reminds me of what the Arcturians said a long time ago, because sorry for people who are hearing this as a repeat, but for the people hearing this for the first time. So I was developing a coil system. The Arcturians are incredibly evolved beings, very advanced, galactically renowned energetic technology, living energetic technology, not technologies as we have them. That's what I call kind of dead technology. This is living energy technology, totally different, ballpark. But they're also incredibly heart-centered. And it's interesting because I had become accustomed to seeing them as very adept scientifically or living energetically scientifically. And when I was getting a little bit sort of frustrated and I was trying to understand the mental ins and outs of this coil system, they said, no. You're getting stuck because you're trying to do this all mentally. What you're going to understand is there is a world of difference between living as a heart-centered being within your heart intelligence compared to living as a mind-centered being from your intellectual intelligence. Very different. And that really blew me away because the actor is like, wow, I did not expect that. That was really left field. And so coming back to what you were saying, the reason why I wanted to say that is because that these waves that are coming through are, the words initiation is kind of sort of coming forward, but it's really a reminding in a way of you are principally a heart-intelligent being, a heart-centered intelligent being. You have faculties like the intellect, like a physical body, like senses, all sorts of other kit that come with your experience. But your core is your heart intelligence. That is the real, elegant, beautiful, compassionate power center of pure intelligence of where you come from. That's there. And so there is this, they've spoken about before, about this step-by-step adjustment of being head-centric a race of head-centrics, seriously, like head cases, to being heart-centered, where the mind itself becomes a beautiful extension of your heart intelligence. So instead of just flapping around by itself, it is now an immaculate instrument, an extension, like a finger on the hand. It flows from the hand, it's together with the hand, it's not acting separately. It is that a new paradigm of symbiosis from within, all extending from within. And so these waves, as you asked about, the waves coming forward, feel to me, and they're not giving me too much detail, and they do this specifically because they do like people to have the experience of it. Because the trouble with having too much mental or sort of front-loading or precognition is that you have expectations now of what's coming, and what that causes people to do is now you're locked into what you're expecting to see, and then you don't have the full experience of it, because now you're this is what you want to see. Sometimes it's very strong like that, sometimes it's not. So they do leave quite a deal of that for people to experience, and then they'll say afterwards, how was that? How was that ride of the wave for you? But the quality of it, they're saying, is very much a part of this shifting, jumping forward towards these new paradigms, getting people settled and used to being more in the core center, being a heart-centered being with other faculties realigning and symbiotically, coming into, let's say, alignment with your heart-centered intelligence. So that's the way it's moving. And at the same time, similar is happening in slightly different ways within the Earth. So her body is adjusting to these ups, if you like, in her core in a very similar way. And so there are adjustments to the atmosphere, there are adjustments to the mantles, there are adjustments to the interior. It's all going together, definitely. So yes, they're saying very much what you described. There's another series of 3 important waves coming from the equinox, one on the equinox and then another 2 afterwards. So,
well, that's really interesting, because the equinox is tomorrow, and I've used the word ignition and initiation, and it's very strong in April, and we reach a kind of climax in July as well.
Yes,
it's a really peak month. So I don't know how I'm going to approach all that, but also in that live stream, David, after the meditation, you talked about the energetics between continents. So
yes.
I'd love to understand more of what you meant by that.
Yeah, that was a newbie for me as well. I when that came through, I sort of, after the meditation finished, I thought, wow, what because you could feel the energies, and what they sort of saying was that, okay, so my higher self, if there's anything you want to add here, you can, okay, so my higher self just motioning to let it flow. So the image that I saw as it was coming through is that it had been this almost veiling energetic between continents in certain ways. And they're saying that's very much an artifact of, in part, the sense of separation that collective groups of humanity had within certain regions, on certain continents, and those kinds of things. And they're saying this ignition actually started to break down that veiling. And now, instead of there being sort of different people from different cultures on different, whatevers, the separation or the separativeness, ideas, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, was starting to adjust. And now they were connecting together, almost like if you can imagine neighboring flowers with their petals starting to reach and then conduct energy to each other across. And so there was this interconnectivity of flow between, and I feel there's this beautiful synergization, this balance that's going on between what we call the plates or the continents on the surface level. That's very, very important. Now, I think there's going to be more information coming on that in time. But so my higher self is smiling. They're saying, this is going to be a very significant thing moving forward, but you'll feel it in the effect of the warmth you're going to start to feel more so to people in other countries and other cultures, those kind of things, And, a lot of the, let's just say, a lot of the more lower, more negative aspects of certain cultures, I believe, are going to start to dissolve away. So people will start to realize that their more truth of their core nature, not themselves as their the culture that they've endeared themselves to be of, or the country they've endeared themselves to be of, or those kind of things. I feel like there's a softening and a dissolving away, so that people can realize the commonality of source love intelligence that emits from all of us. There aren't those barriers of continents, culture, society, whatever you want to call it. They're starting to erode away, and they're saying that's very much at the heart of what was happening with that part of it.
Beautiful. And I'd also love to ask you also if there's any update on 3i Atlas, because that had its closest flyby to Jupiter just 3 days ago. And I know you felt that it was a being of higher consciousness that was helping our evolution and the evolution of the Earth. So if there's anything else you can share about the gifts that has bestowed on us, David, I'd love to hear them, and I know everyone would.
Yeah, so the teams are saying they don't have anything to add on that right now, but they will say that they have said before that there are many other objects like it, which are not known at this time to the population. And they serve many different purposes, they're saying. But they're saying one thing they would love to consider what's happening is also they've talked about a membrane around the entire solar system, because they're saying in a very similar way, and it reminds me, because they did talk about the music of the spheres before, and these membranes feel like, because they've spoken, I think we did a chat a while ago, and they were talking about the membranes. So I definitely encourage, rather than taking too much time in this, anybody who's watching this to go back and watch that one and understand more about the membranes.
With all the links.
Yes, definitely. But nested membranes have these interiors where the energetic physics can be very different inside one membrane, and another membrane can be nested in another, which has another interior of different energy physics. And it feels like the solar system, planetary systems, all the way down to atoms and everything, membranes seem to be incredibly fundamental to the makeup of reality. And many different aspects within the solar system and externally, and the ignition that's happening within the star itself, are all adding in different ways and levels to this sort of what's the word to use, my higher self here? It's a reinfusion, they're saying, of the source living energetic to bring these systems that were once part of this game of free will, that were veering down into density, to reinfuse them, reinvigorate them, and this is the word they're using, re-enthrive. I've never heard that word before, re-enthrive. So, because they're saying, if you think about it, or if you feel on it, however you wish to, Source energetic is a thriving, life-biased intelligence. It lifts up everything, no matter what it is. And that's the very nature of it. It doesn't disown or abandon anything. It's all part of itself, uplifting pockets of itself which have elected to go through different experiences. And so in which way, sometimes, an experience can be cultivated like we've been through this free will human experience where things have gone, quite far off one way, and now they're being brought back. And the level of the intelligence, I remember somebody saying, I think it was, I did a chat with Michael Sala, and he asked this question, because, lots of different people are saying, some people are a bit more doom and gloom about what they're saying, and there's a whole mixed bag of people saying different things, basically. And when I asked the question, because he was a little bit concerned about some of the things he's been hearing, my team said, essentially, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. This is being handled by beings and intelligences that are so far beyond, so unimaginable to sort of the lower energetic groups that are trying to do X, Y, Z, that it really isn't even, it's not even a game. So, this whole scenario of doom and gloom, no, I'm sorry, it's not at all. What we're experiencing is the outpouring of the stuff that we have inadvertently created or created by choice, it could be a mix of things, that has brought this down, and it's being effortlessly broken away at a rate so that we can, handle it okay. They could just blitz this stuff off and get rid of it, but the jump in stabilization from here to where we would be if it was instantly cleared would be a rapid, massive ask, even for people who are very adept at, holding energies. So it has to be done in a certain way, and everyone is considered in this whole process, so they're always monitoring, always looking out for things. So I'd say to everyone, always go inside and feel the trust, not the hope, the trust. Hope is like, I really hope everything's going to work out, whereas trust is, I know things are going to work out because the source intelligence within me is saying everything is okay, it's fine. You're simply walking the path where all of the yucky pebbles, all of the yucky scenery you don't like is being dissolved away, and a new path is being created in front of you, and you're just witnessing the removal of the old and the refusion of the new. That's what you're witnessing. So, yeah, definitely.
It's very interesting because clearly there's an awful lot happening in the world. And so my question, David, wasn't going to be so much in terms of any potential perpetrators of doom and gloom, but rather our collective and individual perception. Because some people,
yes.
Particularly since your meditation, I'm feeling super peaceful and steady.
Yes.
More than I was before, but other people are sort of in the, oh my God, and very caught up in the fear. So it isn't so much the perpetrators, it's the people who
Yes.
victim to what's going on. What's going to happen to the price?
Yes.
And food and with oil, etc. So is it that for a temporary period, there will be a dimensional split until we come back together? The analogy I've often used is we're all at an airport. Some people have chosen fast track, others slow track.
Right.
On the unity consciousness plane at the end of the day. So it's a temporary dimensional split. Is that how you see it right now?
The analogy that they're showing me is, imagine one of those old school radios, you dial up and you dial down and you get to different frequencies.
I've got one.
And you still have it? Oh, cool. I remember those. And they're saying it's where do you choose to align your frequency, your core frequency? And what is frequency but the oscillation of energy? Or an oscillation of something which in itself is an energy. And so as a human being, we have a vast array of frequencies. You might call it a bandwidth of frequencies that we operate in. And you're very correct, because there's a lot of emphasis on who's doing what, but that doesn't matter in truth. It really doesn't. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I say to people, well, if it really was about some other group doing things, why haven't they just come full out on the open and just done whatever they want to do?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yes. So the truth is, it's all a game of manipulation. How do you trick people into holding a low energy state rather than a high energy state? Through all sorts of means, from things you watch, things you hear, all sorts of other things. And if you understand that concept, which I'm sure your listeners will be on cue on, is that you will understand that it's all a game to vie for making you be in a particular state. And so once you understand that, and then you turn to go inwards and the mastery of your energy state, you can turn that dial wherever you want to. You can go up, you can go down. And so this is what it's about. It's about the learning process of everybody learning to say, hold on a second, okay, it's got nothing to do with anything outside of you, even though that you're seeing the outplay in the events outside of you. It's all to do with inside of you. And you have the ability to turn that dial up. You have the ability to release certain segments of frequency bands holding an energy field, which are dragging that turn dial down towards the lower part. And when you release them, back it goes up again. You have complete mastery over that. Nothing upon nothing can get in your way of that except yourself. You can fool yourself into thinking you don't have that ability. You can fool yourself into thinking others have this fictitious control over you, which they don't. it ultimately comes back to that. Again, I'm so glad you raised that point because it's such a key one. It really is, and I think that's where a lot of people get themselves so worked up over things because, and myself included, I'm no problem in telling people in the past, I've gotten a bit riled up over things, and then my teams have come in and say, well, what power do they have over you? Really? Oh yeah, actually, and when you go through the process, you realize that they're saying, right, now you have been triggered by something, understand the energy bands inside you which got triggered. Now you know they're there, you can see them, now you can release them. It won't affect you in the same way again. And the more you do that process of, something happens, you have a reaction, oh, okay, I've got that energy inside me. Clear the energy. Now you won't react the same way. You are literally autonomously turning the dial up without even knowing it by doing that. Because you're taking off the coat layers of lower frequency and you're putting on instead, or inviting in to replace it, higher energy ones that are going to take you up and up and up and up and up quite naturally, quite automatically. So yeah, I very much agree with what you said there, totally.
It's a sort of training for our mastery. That's how I often talk.
Yes, yeah.
Training for our mastery, because if we didn't have those triggers, then we wouldn't learn it. So it's almost like the crazier, the more chaotic, and the louder things get out there, the quieter I try and get in here. Because that's the antidote, isn't it? That's the antidote to all that stuff. Because it's only in here that matters. Nothing else matters at the end of the day.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Did I interrupt you?
No, I'm done. No.
And it's another important thing because my high self is reminding me that what we're here to do is to learn to. Sorry if my chair's creaking. I'm a bit of a creaky chair, so if you hear those noises every now and again. What we're here to do is to understand how to. What's the word or the phrase? Well, they're just saying quite simply how to learn to change your dial as you wish. And they're saying a lot of beings have such a depth mastery of that, they can appear in front of you, disappear, because they can turn it up, they can turn it down very quickly. And by doing so, you become the master of your reality because you now choose the broadcast that you're giving off. You don't just endure it like a broadcast of suffering or lack or inability or can't do's, etc. So it really is all a fundamental question of what are you broadcasting? Do you want to continue to do that or do you want to change it? And learning how to go inside and clear the energies that are broadcasting what you don't want and replacing them. The way I do it is replace it with the high self energetic. So now you're becoming more of your higher self, you're broadcasting as your higher self would do, and you're making those sequential jumps towards becoming a fully embodied higher self in a human form. And so, and by doing so, they're saying, because as you move into the higher bands, the pace or the apparency of how quickly outer reality bends to your sudden change in frequency will become quicker and quicker and quicker. So these these levels that we're in, these schools of what you might call schools of hard knocks, or very intense training, as you call it, are designed to help people really become aware outwardly of what you're projecting from the inside, so you can clear it all out, learn to stabilize, because when you move into the higher bands, a necessity of quite a comfortable mastery of what your state is, your energy state is quite important, so that you create exactly the reality you want. You don't sort of accidentally flop down or do something like that. So they're saying there's a process of learning an adept stability from within that is going on, which is very, very important as well. Yeah.
Really, I really get that. And David, really, as a final question, I mean, astrologically, 18 months or so ago, I made a video called The Big Picture, because I was looking at a very particular and unique configuration astrologically from 2025 to 2027. 2025 in numerology was a 9-year, it was an ending year. It was the year of the wood snake, which ended on February the 17th this year. This is a 1 year, 2 plus 2 plus 6 is a 1 year. They call it 10 and 1, so it's a new beginning. And we've entered the year of the fire horse in Chinese astrology on 17th of February. So got a very different quality. And then because by the 26th of April, all of the outer planets will have changed signs. It's very unusual for all of the outer planets to change signs in an 18-month period, between November 24 and April 26. And it seems to settle a little as we get into 2027. So astrologically, I'm seeing 2026 as the big year of transition and change. A lot of change, a lot of speed, and then it begins to settle a little next year. Would you agree with that? Where you are?
Yes, yeah, my higher self is saying that this is very much so the case. Yeah, 2026 is a year of vast change and rapid jumping. 2027 they're saying is more of a year of stabilization and learning to settle with, they're saying, certain truths that are coming forward, and they're going to be revealings. And they're saying one thing they would like to add is that these revealings are really designed to help people. Okay, so can you phrase that a little different way, my higher self? Trying to find, it's more of a sensation that I'm being given. I'm trying to find the words to describe it to you. Okay, I understand now. So what's being said is that there are going to be inner paradigm shifts within people's own mindset, outlook, fundamental beliefs, all those kind of things. They're saying many things that people thought were true are going to be challenged. Many things that people thought were, no, this is the way it is, are going to be challenged and rocked. And sometimes depending on how much people hold on to that belief system or not, depends on how difficult it will appear to be when these truths and these openings start coming forward. And so they're really saying the more relaxed and fun and the less gripping onto on anything, because they're saying grip is really not your friend. It doesn't help you. It holds on by definition, and it will anchor you, and it will hold you to a concept. It will hold you to a paradigm. It will hold you to an event. It will hold you to all sorts of things. And the more you can just relax, loosen up, let go, let things just, filter through, evolve and expand, the easier this will be. And they're saying the more people can practice and cultivate that just being fun, just being playful, just being loose and, and notice the tension and the grip. And they're saying that's the big paradigm, if you like, in what people call ascension stuff going on, is that my teams have told me many times, and said, well, what you're feeling now, this is your resistance. You're resisting letting this go because you are holding on to it. Why are you holding on to it? It's not you. And so this is something which I would encourage people to be thoughtful of or aware of is if you're having resistance, why are you resisting to let go? What is it? What do you fear to let go of? What do you fear will happen? And can you let go of that fear so that you can trust in your higher self that at every moment you are being supported, protected, and everything is okay? You're not being left by yourself. You're not being left on the roadside. You are always on, within the realm of your higher self, whether you realize that or not. And it really is our grip and our pressure and our force to keep things in a certain way, or no, this must not change, or no, this is the truth, I will not. That grip, that massive amount of force we sometimes apply is what actually gets us into the trouble that we actually get ourselves into, And when you relax and flow, it's a different story altogether, definitely.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because that grip feels very third dimensional.
Oh, yes.
Attractive.
Well, there's a good, sorry if I interrupted you there, but there's a good phrase or a theme that was spoken to me a while ago, is that whatever it is you can hold on to is not you. Once you have fully let go, that's you.
Wow, that's quite profound. But yes, really
Yeah.
good advice.
Yes, it is, because they're saying you can't hold on to the real you. You can hold on to artifacts, you can hold on to concepts that are, ideas, memes, physical things you can physically grip, but you cannot grip the real you. And so whatever you can let go of is not really you. And so that is the state we're moving into. It's a complete letting go of everything so that you can actually become the real you. I really think about it. It's so opposite to the way we have been taught as 3D beings. Get into the world, get out there, grip your career, do this. It's like layers upon layers of planning and gripping and control and everything else. And everybody inevitably gets up, all sorts of muddles and trouble because of that, because you are now, it's like putting dams in place. The river just will flow and it will sort itself out perfectly well. It's an intelligent living system. You then know you're not flowing that way. You're going to go this way. You put a wall in the, yes, exactly. And eventually the water is just going to blast through that dam you put in place.
It wins every time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, that's the nature of living intelligent energies. They simply wish to flow. Don't hold them up. Don't put blocks in the way. Just, you will. And that is another paradigm they're saying. That's one of the big things for human beings too to consider, is that it's fear that causes us to grip. It's fear that causes us to hold on and put things in the way. That's what we're unraveling. Fear is almost, the manifestation of fear is the gripping and the control and everything else. And they're saying as you move more into your heart intelligence and the trust, it's interesting. I heard a phrase once saying, hope has a hole in it, but trust has you in it. And, which, whatever way you want to take that, it's a very poignant phrase. And to me, what it says is that when you relax into you and you let go, you suddenly realize your higher self is right there. It is, and it is intelligently organizing things for you. But where it gets held up is because it honors your free will. It's where you choose to use your free will to put up roadblocks, to put up walls, to put up control, restriction, bottlenecking, whatever you want to call it. Because now it's got to work through there, and it will break them down, but it's gonna, it's going to work in alignment with your free will as well. So yeah, it really is about that, and it's very interesting because I for anybody who wants a bit of contrast into that, I put a video of myself up in a documentary series I took part back in 2005 or 6, I think it was. If anybody wants a bit of a giggle, to look at how I was then before I really started this work and now. It's a completely different paradigm, a completely different energy. And I say that in the means to just say that by continuing the work of what my teams have encouraged me to do, which is to let go, be very honest with yourself. There's nothing to be afraid of admitting anything. So I always say to people, if I have something in the past, I'm happy to share that because it's helpful to other people. It is what it is, but your truth, your real truth is your core. And that has none of this stuff that you're learning to let go of. And so by being honest with yourself, you allow yourself to access something that you may have otherwise denied, because denial is a free will choice to push it down, put the clamps on, hold it down, keep it in the cupboard, don't look at it again. Whereas being honest with yourself is saying, okay, it's time this came out, open it up, right? This needs a good clear out, right? There you go. Because, there is no judgment of any kind from your higher self, source self, not at all. It delights in your process of learning. It delights in you returning to your source self, and it already knows all the nooks and crannies about you, and is very happy when you find them and you are honest about it with yourself, and you can finally release it, because it's almost like a sigh of relief. There you go, another packet of suffering you've just sent on its way. Well done. It's just like that. And as human beings, we because, what if they find out this, or what? It's like, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Self-honesty is such a big key, I find, in this. It really is.
It's almost like we're dropping baggage to move closer to the light body.
Yes, we're dropping the weights. It's like a ship is not going to sail off into the ocean sunset if it's still anchored to where it is. It's dropping the weights, definitely.
And is there any final message you'd like to share, David, before we close? This has been wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. So we spoke before the interview, the recorded section, that I tuned in beforehand and asked if the teams or the Infinite Source Intelligence wanted to give a message, and they said not a message as such, like a channel message. What they would love to consider people doing is really, because what they see at this time more than ever is lots of people getting really confuddled and, all caught up in all the events that are going on. And, really needing something to hold on to for hope and, is it going to be okay? Is it going to be okay? And that's an understandable human nature. But what they're saying is what they really would love to encourage people to do is to go back within. You see, think of all the masters that you might have heard of or might have worked with or called on, or the archangels, angels, whoever it is that you work with. They have this immense connection with their source presence inside. They are never engaged or tangled up. They see everything. They see more of the uglier truths than any human could possibly even see. They are at peace. They don't get upset about these things. Yes, there's a movement to make positive change, but they don't get embroiled in it and all riled up, because they know in their core everything is okay. Everything is moving as it should do. And so there is an ask for people to consider that coming back into yourself, getting to know yourself as your source intelligence, changing your mission is in fact changing the timelines. It is changing how everything takes place outside of you. Getting wrapped up in all sorts of things outside of you doesn't do that. It re-empowers it, because you focus on an energy, you give it energy, you store the energy in it, and now you've given it more battery life, basically, in one way of speaking.
You're attached to it as well.
Yes, you're attached to it. Yes, you're propping it up, basically. So they're saying that the most beneficial thing that anyone can do is go inside, find that peace, learn to sit in and live in the energy of your higher self, your source self. And for anybody who's new to this work, on the Patreon site, which I'm sure you'll put the link down below, there's 2 free meditations, number 14 and 15, which is the beginning of the opening of the Sacred Heart, and the Infinity Point, which is your direct connection to Source Intelligence itself. If you just practice those, or even find your own version that you feel happy with, if that's what you want to do, but just connect with the Source Self inside, and just, if you wish to, make that a daily practice when you get up, before you go to sleep. Can even ask your higher self to put you in a cocoon or a membrane that will hold that energy while you sleep around you. All that assistance is there, but to keep understanding and reminding yourself that you are not a feather being blown around in the winds of the external. You are a master creator that emits energy, and it's the quality of energy that you emit that determines your experience and the collective experience as well. So it's not about what's going on out there. It's all about what's going on in here, and what filters do you have in the way that are causing ruckuses or things to go wrong, and your higher self will work with you to understand what they are and help you break it down and clear it away very fast. And that's what my experience has been. So they're saying that really is their message for today, for people to do, because they're saying there is an enormous paradigm shift taking place. Now, they're saying in the old paradigm of human beingness, it was all about out of focus, and there were necessary steps in place in spiritual circles to help people understand certain things, but a lot of it was geared towards, external viewing and so forth. They're saying you're now moving into a brand new paradigm where it is all about the internal. And they're saying don't be afraid to let go of old paradigms that are no longer working for you, because you will jump, you will move paradigms, and eventually you're going to come completely in your center where it's you are completely sovereign, you are self-running, you are self-determining, you determine the vibration that you emit, the quality of the light you emit, and how you shape your reality. And they're saying this is how these beings, such as the masters, That's what the master part refers to. That's what they have done. They have come within. They are fully operating from within. They don't get embroiled with the external. They learn how to change themselves in order to change the external. They don't grapple and fight and wrestle with the external. They know, because it all comes from whatever reality they're in. It comes from within. And they can change the dial up. They can change the dial down, whichever way they want to. That is the mastery that we're moving into. So, and they're saying, just as a last message, that many people are going to, and are already feeling, they're saying many people who are listening to this now will already be feeling like there is a need to perhaps change from what they're currently doing, whatever that, I don't know what that is, that's just the words they're giving. And moving into something new, they're saying, just enjoy the experience of it. Don't be afraid, because that is an inner request from your inner self to say, okay, you no longer need this. You need to move into something new, because you're getting closer and closer to yourself now. And so the number of external paradigms, let's call them, I don't know, constructs, courses, whatever you want to call them, although they've served great purpose for what they've done, you're now moving beyond them and you're moving closer towards your own core. So you live completely and entirely from there. So they're saying that's the paradigm that humanity is moving into. And they're saying you are right. Some people are moving in different ways. Some people, because of the nature of what they've selected to go through, the density, appear to be going a little bit slower. It's not really so much slower. It's more that they've opted to take on a great deal of heavy stuff. So there's a bit more to release than, say, somebody else. And they're saying, once again, feel into your core and ask your core the question, how are things going? They're saying you're going to be very surprised by the answer that you get, because the answer is perfectly okay.
That's a brilliant point to end on, David. Absolutely brilliant. And, what you've been saying these last few minutes is just music to my ears, because you're saying things that I'm saying in the videos, but using slightly different language. And, I know it will help people, particularly at the moment when things are a bit crazy in the outside world. I know it will help.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. To anyone, I just relax. I don't watch anything of the news. That's a whole new thing in itself. But it's just be aware of anything that you're listening to, or any paradigm or any information anybody's giving to you that makes your dial turn down, and then make an informed choice to decide what you want to do. Do you want to dial back up and just let that pass by, or again, it's all part of the mastery of being the real you and what energy you choose to hold and therefore emit.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, David, for gifting us with your presence and your wisdom. I always love these conversations, and I know they help people so much, particularly in times of very fast-moving transition, when you almost feel the ground is shifting too quickly under your feet, and you're losing foundations, and a lot is changing in your own life, perhaps. And
yes.
So I know people will find that really reassuring and really stabilizing. So
definitely.
You in the world, David, and I hope out there enjoyed it as much as I certainly did, and I hope David did too.
Yeah, I just love having, like you say, interviews with you and friendly chats off record. It just, you're a beautiful soul, Pam, and I'm so thankful that we are good friends now, and we have this friendship, and it's I can't thank you enough for your kind words and just the work that you do as well, because I do read some of the comments that come through when these videos get released, and there's such a love and an admiration for you and what you do. So, and I think that's absolutely well founded. So definitely,
they're a good lot. Yeah.